Welcome to my podcast. Today, I will be discussing some possible trade proposals that may occur during the trade deadline in 2016. These are not trades that will go down, but these are possible trades that could go down, and these are fictional and made up by me. And I think it would be a good idea to do it today since the trade deadline is fast approaching. So it'd be pretty fun to do a podcast on this topic. So I will be creating some trade proposals that are rumored on some players on the trading block. Let's get started. The first player is Nugent Hopkins, the Edmonton Oilers. In this trade proposal, I have Nugent Hopkins and Justin Schultz rumored to be going to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for Kevin Shattenkirk, Patrick Berglund, and goaltender prospect Phoenix Copley. I think this is a good trade for both teams because the Blues need a number one center to play alongside Tarasenko, and Justin Schultz would fill in on the second or third pair alongside of Rob Bertuzzo or Joel Edmondson. And with the emergence of Colton Parayko, they can afford to trade Kevin Shattenkirk since the Blues are a bit restricted on cap space. And with Kevin Shattenkirk going to be a free agent next summer, it's best that they get what they can for him. From the Edmonton perspective, they get a defenseman in Kevin Shattenkirk, who is one of the better puck-moving defensemen, and they finally get a defenseman that can quarterback their power play. And Patrick Berglund is a good third-line player that can play on the top six when necessary if injuries occur. And Phoenix Copley is a goaltender prospect that would help out the depth in the system and potentially be their starter or compete for a starting position in the future. Since the St. Louis Blues are really set for goaltending. The next trade is Keith Yandle to the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for Anthony Mantha, Kyle Quincey, and a second-round pick in 2016. This pick will become a first-round pick if the Detroit Red Wings make the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. This is a good trade for both teams because the Detroit Red Wings really need a defenseman that can help out their power play because not that Mike Green isn't good, but with Cromwell injured and Mike Green seemingly always in and out of the lineup, they need a more reliable veteran defenseman that can quarterback the power play and another top four defenseman in their lineup. That's a puck-moving defenseman. And also, he's a right-handed shooting defenseman, so that's a plus. On the other side, the Rangers would get Anthony Mantha, who is a top prospect, who the Red Wings said that they would be willing to trade. since they have a flux of good young talent in their system. So Anthony Mantha would be available to be traded. Quincey would essentially replace Keith Yandle in the Rangers lineup. And the second round pick is just tacked on to the deal. This is very similar to the trade that the Rangers made for Keith Yandle last trade deadline when they sent Anthony Duclair, John Moore, and a second round pick to the Coyotes for him. Next player I have rumored to going elsewhere is Eric Staal. Now, this one was really hard to do because he has such a big cap hit, but I feel like this team could really benefit from Eric Staal's presence in the lineup, and that is the Columbus Blue Jackets. I have Eric Staal going to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Kim Atkinson. So that would give them help on the right side, them meaning Carolina, and Rene Bourque as well, because Columbus cannot afford Eric Staal's contract by just trading Cam Atkinson. So they have to give up a player with some salary on their contract. So Rene Bourque would go back to Carolina. This would work for both teams because I feel like Rene Bourque would help the depth for the Carolina Hurricanes, and Cam Atkinson is a very good top six forward. Next player on this list is Andrew Ladd. Andrew Ladd is a great fit for the Anaheim Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks have been looking for a top-line left winger to play with Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf for the longest time. Well, I feel like Andrew Ladd would be a great fit with that line because he's big, he's strong, he can grind it out on the cycle, and he is pretty good on the rush. And he's no slouch defensively either. So he's a perfect fit on that line. So you would trade him to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Jakob Silferberg and Nick Kerdiles, who is one of the Ducks' top prospects. This is a tough deal to make for Edmonton. It's not Edmonton. For the Anaheim Ducks, but I feel like with the slew of young talent that the Anaheim Ducks have, they can afford to give up Nick Kerdiles because the Ducks are trying to win now. Andrew Ladd would help them do that. Jakob Silferberg is having an off year, and that would immediately fill or replace Andrew Ladd's place in the lineup. Jakob Silferberg had a pretty good stint in Ottawa before being traded to Anaheim. So probably a change of scenery would help him. Next on the list is another Winnipeg Jet in Jacob Trouba. Jacob Trouba is looking for a new contract, and it's way more than what Winnipeg is willing to offer. The only team that I think would be willing to give him this type of money is the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres need a top four defenseman, and they are a team that is willing to pay money to get players, as proven by the Ryan O'Reilly contract. So Jacob Trouba would be traded to the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for Johan Larsson, Mark Pysyk, and Justin Bailey, one of their top forward prospects. This is probably a little bit of an overpayment for Buffalo's part, but Buffalo really needs defense. They have a lot of talented forwards, but I feel like Jacob Trouba would be the missing piece for the Sabres defense. And if you get Trouba paired alongside Rasmus Ristolainen, that would form a really good top pair for many years. On the other side of this trade, Johan Larsson is a really good two-way forward that can play on the third line and occasionally can play on the second line, but not consistently. Mark Pysyk is a really solid defenseman. He can basically replace Trouba in the lineup, but he's not as physical as him, but he does all the basic fundamentals of the game. And Justin Bailey is the icing on the cake in this. He really is the swing player in this deal. If Justin Bailey pans out, the Winnipeg Jets will win this deal by a wide margin. Travis Hamonic is the next player on this list. Now, Travis Hamonic has requested a trade since almost the beginning of the season. Now, he requested a trade to Western Canada, which includes the Winnipeg Jets. After trading Jacob Trouba, they need to replace him. And Travis Hamonic basically does the same thing as Jacob Trouba. Travis Hamonic would be dealt to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for goaltending prospect Eriksson, Comrie, and Mark Stuart. Now, you may be thinking, that's a big overpayment. Yeah, that is an overpayment. But with the current goaltending duo or trio with Pavlik, Hellebuyck, and the other young goaltender in Winnipeg, they should be more than a formidable trio. Connor Hellebuyck has been more established, and he should be the goaltender of the future. Eric Comrie should be a good goaltender, but I think Travis Hamonic is more important to what the team needs, especially after trading Jacob Trouba away. Next player on the list is Loui Eriksson. Loui Eriksson is a big part of the Boston Bruins team, which is a big reason why they may be hesitant to trade him. So this trade may not go down. He may not get traded. So don't expect Loui Eriksson to be traded at the deadline. But if he does get traded, the best team for him would be the Anaheim Ducks. They need some depth at the right wing, especially with Chris Stuart injured. Loui Eriksson gets dealt to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for defenseman Sami Vatanen and forward Patrick Maroon. We all know what Loui Eriksson does. He's a pretty good offensive player. He's solid defensively as well. He's very solid all around. I think Patrick Maroon is the typical Bruins player that they like to get. Sami Vatanen would definitely help out the Bruins defensive core. And I feel like Vatanen kind of is the odd defenseman out in Anaheim right now. So I think the Bruins could use him way better than Anaheim could, especially with the flux of young defensemen that are waiting to come up like Shea Theodore. The next player on the list is Jiri Hudler. Jiri Hudler should be dealt at the deadline. The best team or fit for Jiri Hudler would be the Montreal Canadiens, who are in desperate need for depth scoring or scoring in general. I think a Jiri Hudler for Sven Andrighetto straight up trade would work for both teams. Andrighetto is very raw, but if he pans out, he'll be a pretty good player. He's only 22 right now, so he still has some development to go. Whereas Jiri Hudler is approaching free agency, so this is clearly a rental price right now. I don't know if Montreal would re-sign Jiri Hudler if they trade for him, but Jiri Hudler would be a great fit on the second line alongside Lars Eller and Alex Galchenyuk. Next player on the list is Mikhail Bourque. Mikhail Bourque would be a great fit on the Nashville Predators. And I'm just going to make this simple. Mikhail Bourque to the Nashville Predators for 2017 first round pick. Yes, this may be a bit of an overpayment. Is Bourque worth a first round pick? Maybe not. Maybe his stats are a little overinflated playing in Phoenix or Arizona, but Mikhail Bourque can play, and it remains to be seen whether he can produce in a structured organization like the Predators. But he could definitely help their top six. Next on this list is Frederik Andersen. A team that really needs goaltending is the Calgary Flames. Frederik Andersen would get dealt to the Flames in exchange for Kris Russell and a 2016 second round pick. This is a great deal for both teams. Calgary gets their number one goalie, and Anaheim gets a defenseman in Kris Russell, who can be either a rental or a long-term fixture piece as the veteran defenseman, and a second-round pick as well, which would really help them as they can improve their depth in the draft. Radim Vrbata is another rumored piece to be moving. The San Jose Sharks could really use a right winger. Radim Vrbata's production has really dropped off this season, but he is still a very solid sniper when you play him with good players. So the Sharks would deal Jonas Donskey and a third-round pick in 2017 to the Vancouver Canucks for Radim Vrbata. Brayden Schenn is the next player on this list. A player that has been rumored to be moved for a long time. Brayden Schenn should be moved by the trade deadline, since he is the RFA this season and at the end of the season, and he is probably going to be looking for a new contract and a significant pay raise, which the Flyers may not be willing to give him. A team that would be interested in him would be the Ottawa Senators, who need a left winger. Brayden Schenn would get dealt to the Senators in exchange for Patrick Riorkach and Matt Pupil. Senators fans may be saying Matt Pupil is one of our top prospects. That is true, but Brayden Schenn is one of the players that would definitely help their team. He's still a little raw. And in Philly, he never really got a chance to play significant roles on the team until this season. And he has produced this season. And I feel like he would be a great fit on either of the top two lines. And especially with Mike Hoffman's situation unknown, if he would resign, I feel like Brayden Schenn would be a great replacement for him if he decides to leave. Next player on this list is Jonathan Drouin. Jonathan Drouin has been rumored to be traded, or has requested a trade publicly in November, but he still hasn't got traded because right now his value just isn't as high as he thinks it is. A team that would be interested in him would be the Pittsburgh Penguins. A package deal that would include Daniel Sprong, Brian Dumoulin, and a first-round pick in 2017 would be more than a reasonable price for the Penguins to bring in Jonathan Drouin. Now, Penguins fans love Brian Dumoulin, and Daniel Sprong is a very good prospect for them. But I think Jonathan Drouin would make a really good linemate with either Crosby or Malkin. He needs to play with star players in order to play well. On the other side of this, Daniel Sprong would do great in Pittsburgh, as would Dumoulin. Tampa Bay needs that bottom six defenseman, and Dumoulin would definitely fit that bill. Next player on the list is Scott Hartnell. A team that fits the criteria is Scott Hartnell. The Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers, in addition to a defenseman, they need a veteran forward that would be a bodyguard figure to Connor McDavid. Because if you have a star player on your team, teams are going to take runs at him. So you need a player that will stand up and protect him. So Hartnell is that type of player that will stand up for your players. And he would be a good leader for the young Oiler team. And he would probably waive his no-trade clause to go there because of the young talent that he would play with there. And in exchange for Hartnell, the Oilers would give up Teddy Purcell and Anton Slepyshev. The Columbus Blue Jackets would get a right winger who would serve as a depth winger, really, and a prospect winger. So if you recall earlier in the video, I said Columbus Blue Jackets would be getting Eric Staal. Well, if you couple that with getting Teddy Purcell, that is a significant upgrade. So if you trade Cam Atkinson, Rene, Bourque, and Scott Hartnell for Eric Staal, Teddy Purcell, and Anton Slepyshev, do you do that? I think that's a good trade for Columbus. The next player on the list is Kris Russell. Now, Carolina is a team that's on the bubble. They want to make a playoff push, but at the same time, they want to trade some of the players that are free agents next year. Kris Russell falls into that category. He's one of their better players this year, but I think he would be of value this year. The Devils would definitely have use for Kris Russell, as even though publicly they said they wouldn't be very active, Kris Russell definitely would help their team, being that they need a top six forward. Kris Russell would bring speed and scoring to their team, which is something they really need. In exchange, the Devils would trade a 2017 second-round pick. James Reimer has been one of the hottest trade candidates right now. You can say that this might have been his redemption season or career reviving season, because if he didn't have the season, who knows if he would stay in the NHL. Right now, the San Jose Sharks are looking for a backup goalie. James Reimer would definitely help the San Jose Sharks, as they are looking for a backup for Martin Jones. A third-round pick and Nikita Japalovs would definitely help. A third-round pick is a solid pick in the draft of 2016, of course. And Nikita Japalovs is a nice prospect to have. The Dallas Stars need a veteran defenseman if they want to make a long playoff run. One veteran defenseman that you can acquire for is Dan Hamhuis of Vancouver Canucks. They are loaded in top quality prospects. They could trade forward prospect Denis Goryanov and defensive prospect Esa Lindell. These are two really solid prospects that would help Vancouver. But since Dallas is so good in the system, it doesn't affect them at all. And it would help them in their playoff push, as Dan Hamhuis is a good defenseman on a bad team. Michael Grabner is a player that unfortunately is stuck on a bad team, but he would definitely help a playoff team. The Colorado Avalanche could definitely be helped by Michael Grabner and his speed. Every team needs players with speed, but the Colorado Avalanche's identity is fast forwards. So Michael Grabner would add to that speed. In exchange for Grabner, the Avalanche would give a 4th round pick and a 5th round pick of 2016, which is exactly what the Toronto Maple Leafs gave up to get him. The Chicago Blackhawks need a veteran defenseman. To get him away with some games in the recent stretch with lackluster defense occasionally, they really play 4 defensemen, really. But they can only get away with it in the regular season. In the postseason, if they go on a long run like they did last year, the top 4 is going to be dead tired. So I think they need to add another veteran defenseman. A defenseman like Roman Polak would definitely help their defensive core. He's not a special defenseman, but he's a defenseman that's like a Roosevelt caliber defenseman. He would help solidify the defense. And the Blackhawks would just have to give a 3rd round pick in 2016. It's nothing significant. The New York Islanders have been looking for players to play with Tavares all the season. And what better way to get him going again than to bring back a player he has had chemistry with in P.A. Parento. P.A. Parento would be dealt to the New York Islanders in exchange for a 3rd round pick in 2016. It would be a conditional second. It would turn into a 2nd round pick in 2016 if the Islanders make it to the conference finals. And the last deal I have is Jamie McGinn. Jamie McGinn is also a UFA this season. He has had an amazing year this year. He was the underrated player in the Ryan O'Reilly deal. He was just thrown into the deal by Colorado. But Jamie McGinn does all the dirty work. And he's a player that I think playoff teams could use. Teams like St. Louis Blues. After trading Patrick Berglund away to the Edmonton Oilers, like in the earlier deal, they could use another top 6 forward. Jamie McGinn would fill that role. And the Blues would give the Sabres a 4th and a 5th round and a 6th round pick in a 4th and a 6th round pick in 2016. So to summarize the deals, basically Ryan Nugent Hopkins and Justin Schultz get dealt to the St. Louis Blues for Kevin Shattenkirk and Patrick Berglund and Phoenix Copley. Keith Yandle gets dealt for Anthony Mantha, Kyle Quincey, and 2nd round pick. Eric Staal gets dealt to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Cam Atkinson and Rene Bourque. Andrew Ladd gets dealt to the Anaheim Ducks for Jakob Silferberg and Nick Kerdiles. Jacob Trouba gets dealt to the Buffalo Sabres for Johan Larsson, Mark Pysyk, and Nick Kerdiles. And Justin Bailey, my bad. Travis Hamonic gets dealt to the Winnipeg Jets for Eric Comrie and Mark Stuart. Loui Eriksson gets dealt to the Anaheim Ducks for Sami and Patrick Maroon. Jari Hudler gets dealt to the Montreal Canadiens for Sven Andrighetto. Mikhail Bottcher gets dealt to the Nashville Predators for a 1st round pick in 2017. Frederik Andersen gets dealt to the Calgary Flames for Kris Russell in 2016 2nd round pick. Radim Vrbata gets dealt to the San Jose Sharks for Jonas Donskey and a 3rd round pick in 2017. Brayden Shea gets dealt to the Ottawa Senators for Patrick Weirkoch and Matt Pupil. Jonathan Drouin gets dealt to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Daniel Sprong. Brian Dumoulin in 2017 1st round pick. Christopher Stieg gets dealt to the New Jersey Devils for a 2nd round pick in 2017. Scott Hartnell gets dealt to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Teddy Purcell and Anton Slepyshev. James Reimer gets dealt to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for a 3rd round pick and Tita Jabelovs. Dan Hamhuis gets dealt to the Dallas Stars in exchange for Dennis Guryanov and Esa Lindell. Michael Grabner gets dealt to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for the 4th round pick of 2016 and the 5th round pick of 2016. Roman Polak gets dealt to the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for the 3rd round pick in 2016. And P.A. Parenteau gets dealt to the New York Islanders in exchange for a 3rd round pick in 2016. And Jamie McGinn gets dealt to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for a 4th round pick in 2016 and a 6th round pick in 2016. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I will be back again next week with another podcast. I don't know what the subject will be, but I have another feeling it's going to be related to the trade deadline.